There are moments in life when no option feels clean. No matter what choice is made, someone gets hurt, something is lost, or a principle is broken. These moments are rare for most people, yet they reveal something important about human nature. We like to believe that right and wrong are simple, that good people always know what to do. But history, law, and everyday life tell a different story. Human beings often face situations where values collide. Mercy can clash with fairness. Safety can conflict with freedom. Loyalty can oppose honesty. In those moments, morality stops being a slogan and becomes a burden. Philosophers have studied these tensions for centuries, but the questions remain alive because they belong to ordinary life. Should a doctor prioritize one patient or many? Should a government limit liberty to protect security? Should a person break a promise to prevent harm? These are not abstract puzzles reserved for classrooms. They shape courts, hospitals, families, and nations. What makes them so powerful is that they force us to examine ourselves. We discover what we truly value only when values compete. That is why moral dilemmas continue to fascinate people across generations. They are not just about theory, they are mirrors. And sometimes, when we look closely, we are surprised by what we see. Imagine a vehicle rushing forward with no brakes, moving towards several people who cannot escape. You have only seconds to act. Nearby is a switch that could redirect the vehicle onto another path where one person stands unaware. If you do nothing, many die. If you intervene, one dies because of your decision. This scenario has become one of the most famous thought experiments in modern philosophy, often called the trolley problem. Its power does not come from realism alone. It comes from exposing a conflict between two instincts. One instinct says save the greater number of lives. Another says you should not intentionally cause harm to an innocent person. Many people feel both instincts at the same time. They may choose one path while still feeling troubled by it. That discomfort matters. It shows morality is not always arithmetic. We are not machines calculating totals. We care about intentions, responsibility, fairness, and the meaning of actions. If saving five by harming one feels simple on paper but painful in imagination, that gap teaches us something. Moral judgment is shaped not only by outcomes, but by emotion, empathy, and how we understand agency. The trolley problem endures because it turns invisible assumptions into visible conflict within seconds. Now change the scenario slightly. Instead of pulling a switch, imagine standing on a bridge above the track. Beside you is a large stranger. Pushing that person onto the track would stop the vehicle and save several others below. Suddenly, many people who were willing to pull the switch refuse to push the stranger. Yet the numbers remain the same. One dies, several live. Why does the reaction change so dramatically? This question has inspired decades of debate in psychology and philosophy. Some argue that physical contact changes our moral perception. Touching a person and using their body as a tool feels more direct and more violent. Others say the issue is intention. In one case, harm is a side effect of redirecting danger. In the other, harm becomes the chosen means of rescue. Even people unfamiliar with ethics often sense this difference immediately. Their reasoning may be incomplete, but their discomfort is real. That discomfort suggests that human morality includes layers beyond counting lives. We distinguish between causing harm and allowing harm, between foreseeing death and intending death, between redirecting danger and exploiting a person. Whether those distinctions are justified remains contested. But the emotional divide between switch and shove reveals that our minds evaluate actions through more than numbers. We judge stories, motives, and relationships as much as results. Long before laboratories studied moral judgment, thinkers tried to build systems for deciding right action. One of the most influential was Jeremy Bentham. He proposed a bold and simple principle. Actions should be judged by their consequences, especially by how much happiness or suffering they create. If one policy reduces pain and increases well-being more than another, it is morally better. Bentham believed nature placed humanity under two masters, pleasure and pain. Because people seek one and avoid the other, ethics should recognize this reality. His theory later became known as utilitarianism. It appealed to reformers because it offered a practical method. Laws, punishments, and institutions could be evaluated by their social effects rather than tradition or privilege. Instead of asking whether a rule was ancient, one could ask whether it improved lives. This was revolutionary in societies shaped by inherited status. Utilitarian thinking also influenced economics, public policy, and democratic reasoning. If government exists to serve people, then measuring welfare seems sensible. Yet critics quickly noticed dangers. Can happiness be measured fairly? Should individual rights be sacrificed whenever majorities benefit? Does pleasure alone capture human dignity? Bentham's legacy remains powerful because he turned morality toward human welfare while also provoking enduring questions about whether welfare can be the only measure of justice. Another major voice challenged the idea that outcomes are everything. Immanuel Kant argued that morality rests on duty, reason, and respect for persons. According to this view, some actions are wrong even if they produce useful results. A lie told to achieve convenience may still be wrong because it treats truth as expendable. Using an innocent person merely as a tool may violate their dignity regardless of benefits. Kant believed human beings possess worth beyond price because they are rational agents capable of choice. That means they should never be treated simply as instruments for someone else's goals. This idea deeply influenced modern discussions of rights and equality. It helps explain why many people reject sacrificing one healthy person to harvest organs for 5 patients, even if more lives would be saved. The problem is not the math. The problem is treating a person as spare parts. Kant also emphasized universal principles. Before acting, ask whether the rule guiding your behavior could be accepted by everyone. If not, the action may fail morally. Though demanding and sometimes controversial, this framework protects something many people instinctively cherish: the idea that individuals matter in themselves. In a world tempted by efficiency, Kant reminds us that not everything valuable can be counted or exchanged. The tension between consequence and duty appears far beyond philosophy books. Hospitals confront it when resources are limited. During crises, doctors may need to decide which patients receive scarce treatment first. One approach aims to save the most lives or the most years of life. Another insists that each person deserves equal concern regardless of age, status, or probability of recovery. Neither approach feels fully satisfying because each protects one moral value while risking another. Similar dilemmas appear in disaster response, organ allocation, and emergency triage. Professionals often create guidelines to reduce bias and emotional chaos, yet guidelines cannot erase tragedy, they only structure it. These real situations differ from thought experiments because decisions occur under pressure, uncertainty, and grief. Information is incomplete, outcomes are unknown, families are present, time is short. Still, the same philosophical conflict remains. Should we maximize benefit or honor equal respect even when fewer are saved? Most societies end up blending principles rather than choosing one exclusively. They seek efficiency while protecting fairness, utility while preserving dignity. This compromise reflects human complexity. We want systems that work, but we also want systems that feel just. Whenever medicine faces scarcity, ethical theory becomes practical reality, and abstract debates turn into choices with names, faces, and consequences that cannot be undone. Philosophical ideas do not stay locked in books. They slowly filter into how societies argue about justice, law, and responsibility. When people debate punishment, for example, they often disagree on what matters more: consequences or intent. Some believe punishment is justified if it prevents future harm, even if the system is harsh. Others believe punishment must always respect human dignity, no matter the outcome. This divide echoes the tension between utilitarian thinking and duty-based ethics. In real courts, these ideas shape sentencing, rehabilitation, and even what counts as fair evidence. The struggle is not just theoretical, it influences how societies define justice itself. Every legal system, no matter how advanced, carries this hidden philosophical debate inside it. Even when laws look technical, they are built on moral assumptions about people, responsibility, and fairness. In everyday life, people also act like informal philosophers without realizing it. When someone decides whether to tell a difficult truth or protect someone's feelings, they are weighing consequences against honesty. When a friend breaks a promise to prevent harm, they are silently choosing between competing values. These decisions rarely come with clear instructions. Instead, people rely on intuition shaped by culture, upbringing, and experience. What is striking is how often people justify opposite actions using similar moral language. One person may say, "I did it for the greater good," while another says, "I couldn't betray what is right." Both believe they are acting morally. This shows that morality is not a single system in practice, but a collection of overlapping instincts and principles that sometimes conflict. As moral thinking developed in philosophy, one of the central questions became whether morality is about rules or results. Rule-based ethics suggests that certain actions are always right or wrong, regardless of outcomes. Result-based ethics suggests that the value of an action depends entirely on its consequences. This disagreement is not just academic. It reflects two different ways humans naturally think. Rules provide stability and predictability. They help societies function without constant negotiation. Outcomes provide flexibility and responsiveness. They allow people to adapt to unique situations. Most real-world moral systems borrow from both, even if they lean toward one side. Consider situations where breaking a rule seems necessary to prevent harm. Many people feel torn in such moments. They respect the importance of rules, yet they also feel the urgency of immediate suffering. This emotional conflict is central to moral psychology. It suggests that human beings are not purely logical decision makers. Instead, we are guided by competing moral systems inside the mind. One system reacts to harm and outcomes, another responds to rules and obligations. When these systems disagree, people experience moral tension. That tension is not a flaw, it may be the core of ethical awareness. The idea of maximizing overall happiness, often linked to utilitarian thought, sounds simple at first, but applying it consistently becomes complicated quickly. How do we measure happiness across different individuals? Is one person's intense suffering equal to several people's mild discomfort? Can future happiness be compared to present suffering? These questions show that even simple moral formulas require interpretation. This is one reason why philosophers like Jeremy Bentham spark both admiration and criticism. His approach provided clarity but also raised difficult measurement problems that remain unresolved today. At the same time, critics argue that reducing morality to calculation risks overlooking something essential about human beings. People are not just carriers of pleasure or pain. They are individuals with identity, memory, and dignity. This concern is central to the philosophy of Immanuel Kant, who argued that moral worth cannot be reduced to outcomes alone. According to this view, certain actions are wrong because they violate respect for persons, even if they produce good consequences. This creates boundaries that even beneficial results cannot cross. It protects individuals from being sacrificed for collective benefit. One of the most powerful aspects of moral dilemmas is that they expose hidden assumptions. When people argue about a difficult case, they often discover that they disagree not only on answers but on values themselves. Some prioritize fairness, others prioritize welfare, and others prioritize rights. These values can align in normal situations but conflict in extreme ones. That is why thought experiments feel so revealing. They strip away distractions and force attention onto core principles. In doing so, they show that moral disagreement is often deeper than it first appears. Another important insight is that moral judgment is influenced by perspective. The same action can feel different depending on whether one is directly involved or observing from a distance. When people imagine themselves physically causing harm, emotional resistance increases. When harm is indirect, it may feel easier to justify. This difference suggests that moral reasoning is not only logical but also embodied. The way a situation is experienced changes how it is judged. This helps explain why identical outcomes can produce different moral reactions. In modern society, ethical decision-making is often delegated to institutions. Governments, hospitals, and legal systems create rules to guide behavior in complex situations. This reduces personal burden but does not eliminate moral difficulty. Instead, it shifts the responsibility to design fair systems. The challenge becomes not only how individuals should act but how rules should be structured in advance. Should laws prioritize efficiency, equality, or protection of rights? These questions continue to shape political debate around the world. Even in technology, moral questions are becoming increasingly important. Artificial intelligence, automated decision systems, and data-driven policies often involve trade-offs similar to classic ethical dilemmas. If a system must choose between different harms, what principles should guide it? Should it prioritize the majority or protect individuals at all costs? These questions show that ancient philosophical debates are becoming newly relevant in modern contexts. What makes moral philosophy enduring is not that it provides final answers, but that it sharpens awareness of difficult choices. It encourages people to examine reasons behind their judgments rather than relying only on instinct. Over time, this reflection can change how people understand responsibility and consequence. It does not remove uncertainty, but it makes that uncertainty more visible and thoughtful. As discussions continue, one thing becomes clear: morality is not a solved equation. It is an ongoing conversation between competing values shaped by history, emotion, and reason. Whether one leans toward consequences or principles, each perspective reveals something important about human life. And in that tension, ethical thinking remains alive, unfinished, and deeply human.